Hello and welcome to Outlook On Air. This podcast is designed to keep you connected with all things Outlook, with special emphasis on our enrichment program and its many activities and services. On this podcast, we'll hear from Outlook associates, donors to our many programs, clients of our services, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this edition of Outlook On Air. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Outlook On Air from the Palatial Podcast Studios here at Outlook Enrichment. Dennis Nelson, your host, and once again, another jam-packed podcast full of all kinds of stuff, and we'll get to some of that as we go along here. First of all, starting off with some of the stuff, I have been to the Outlook Enrichment website off and on, which I often do, of course, to prepare for podcasts and also just to keep up on what's going on, because so many things are happening, and I can tell you that has been the case already. They've had a number of events at Outlook just in the past few months here. They brought the zoo to Outlook recently, and there was a picture up there for a while of a guy holding a snake around his neck, and they got to touch all kinds of different animals and all kinds of fun things there. They also had a bingo night, or a bingo day, I guess, on Saturday. It was an adult event, ages 21 and up, and they played bingo, so that was kind of fun. Some things that are coming up, though, in the future that we can talk about now, because they will be coming up, include the Journey Beyond Sight summer camp for youth. That's going to be fun. That's coming up the 19th through the 24th of July, so that's going to be real exciting. And they also, on April 30th, are going to have the group exercise classes. Of course, the support groups are always going on, whether you're doing them in person here at Outlook or over the phone. And you can find out about all this information simply by visiting our website at www.outlooken.org. That's www.outlooken.org. Or if you're using a modern browser such as Firefox, Microsoft Edge, or Google Chrome, you can just put outlooken.org into the search box, and it will also take you there, and you don't have to worry about the W's or any of that stuff. But the official website is www.outlooken.org. So that way we've got all things covered. But the big event that is coming up is going to happen on Wednesday, June 3rd. And that is going to pretty much bring most of Outlook to a standstill. Of course, I'm talking about the annual Tee It Up for Sight Golf Tournament. And you can read about that on our website as well, and even pre-register. Get registered early if you plan on participating, and you might as well just go to the website and check out all the details on that, although we are going to be talking about the Tee It Up for Sight Golf Tournament on our May podcast, so look forward to that as well. We certainly want to give you all the latest information that will be available, especially then, and we certainly hope the weather cooperates on June the 3rd. Now, I want to talk about a couple of tech things that are going on, because we're still getting questions about Good Maps, and a listener wants to know where they can just go read about Good Maps. Well, it gets very confusing, because to just read about Good Maps and find out more about it, you actually have to go to goodmaps.com, even though it is called Indigo Maps, and that's how you have to search for it in the App Store now, INDIGO space maps, and then you'll find it in the App Store. But if you want to just read about it, go to goodmaps.com and you can do all that. So it's kind of confusing, I know, and I don't know why they've done it that way. In fact, their email address still works, info@goodmaps.com. So if you want to write to them directly for any reason, info@goodmaps.com is the way to do that as well. I hate to keep mentioning Fred with the AIJingleMaker.com, but Fred has come up with yet another way to help podcasters as well as broadcasters with a whole new
idea, and it's a very cool one, so I do want to pass it along. Now, if you want to write to Fred, because I don't know anything about all this stuff, I just use it like everybody else. But if you want to write to Fred, his email address is fred@aijinglemaker.com. And, of course, he has the aijinglemaker.com website, which we've already talked about. But he's come out with a whole new website, which is completely different from the AI Jingle Maker, and yet it kind of ties in with it depending on what you're using the other website for. The website is called sounddeck.com. That's sounddeck.com. And it is a very cool website as well. It's almost like having, in broadcast terms, a cart deck on your internet browser. And the cool thing about it, for those of us who are even podcasters, is that you can have this sound deck open on your browser, and if you set it up you'll have to sign in with a user account and all that kind of thing. And once you have that set up, you can actually play different things through SoundDeck, through your browser. They will record on your podcast. And what I thought would really be handy is if I have a guest in here and I, for some reason, want them to also hear what is going to be heard on the podcast, we can capture their reaction at the same time as well. So they'll hear what I play if they're in the room. Now, that isn't always the case by any means, but once in a while you might find yourself in a situation like that where you want a guest to also hear what is being played and get their reaction immediately and that kind of thing. So it can be very handy for that. Find out more about it by going to aijinglemaker.com and reading the blog where he talks about all the new things that he's developing and promoting and all that kind of stuff. But that is a very incredible invention. And here's the best part. If you sign up for an account, the account is absolutely free. And that's a pretty big deal. There's no charge for the account. So that's kind of a cool thing. And I just thought you'd want to know about it here on the Outlook On Air podcast.
Sharing experiences with blindness and visual impairment. Outlook On Air.
And we have a great experience to share with you today. Jane is a client of Outlook Enrichment. She works with our technical training department, and she's learning all kinds of great skills. And what we're going to do right now is let Jane come in here and tell us her story. Why is she now working with us? Jane, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outlook On Air podcast. Welcome, and again, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start with the beginning portion of your life, if we can. Tell us about the early days of Jane, if you would. Maybe like things like where you were born and how you grew up. Anything that you'd like to share. I'll be quiet.
Okay. I was born in Missouri and traveled with my very young family because I was the oldest, and ended up in South Dakota when I was 5, and was in 2 different small towns, and graduated from high school there, and actually went to college there, in sort of a parade of colleges, 3, I think. But anyway, that's a good thing. And then went from there to Boston as a young married woman, and spent 7 years there. I was teaching high school in the Boston Public Schools, and then moved back to South Dakota and taught, as well as had children, and ended up working in several different businesses and starting my own business in my 50s.
Wow, that's quite a lot of territory to cover in a lifetime. And now I assume you were totally sighted, by the way, when you were born. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could see, and we're going to talk about your blindness and all that kind of thing as we go along here, so maybe we can start doing that. You did all these wonderful things, and obviously were very successful and have done very well, which is wonderful. But when did blindness start entering the picture? What did you have? How did that, I know it's a painful story, but if you can tell it, I think you have a lot of very sympathetic listeners here.
Thank you. I went blind in 2022, so that would be 4 years ago. It was a fairly quick onset of blindness. The disease I have is genetic. It's called Leber Hereditary Optic Neuropathy. And I'll say that again in case people want to look it up.
Sure.
Leber Hereditary Optic Neuropathy. It is a mitochondrial disease that is passed on through the mother to their children. I had 2 boys, and therefore my little family will not be passing it on further because the boys can't pass it on. They didn't get it. However, they did get, basically, I'm not sure it's called the gene or whatever, but the problem. And one son did go blind at age 26. And a cousin's son went blind before that. And so at that point is when we found out that our family did carry this genetic issue. So I'm a woman, as you can tell, and one with some experience in age. And that's not supposed to happen at all, but it did. And there's nothing really I can do about it other than accept it and learn as much as I can about technology and all the devices that we all use and trying to work every angle of it, I guess.
And that must have been quite a shock for you to suddenly experience the blindness. How quickly did it come on, and what kind of adaptations have you had to make as a result of that?
It came on within a month. I noticed something and went to several doctors, but within a month, I wasn't driving. I certainly wasn't playing tennis, which I played sometimes up to 3 hours a day. I wasn't doing any of my artwork, of course not reading, books. I think the thing that I still miss the most is driving. It just gave me freedom, and I never imagined I wouldn't have that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we've all learned to adapt, but it's still not the way I would have hoped. But that's okay. We're dealing with that, and my life has changed dramatically, almost in every way.
I can imagine that. Are you a cook at all, for example?
I was. I still cook. I'm not afraid of a gas stove, but I have to be careful. But I definitely cook with using gas. I'm definitely not a big recipe person anymore. I was. But, I do cook. And we order out a lot, and I also get meals that are delivered. Not the Meals on Wheels, which I'm not against. I shouldn't have used that word. They're a good organization, but I get something that's delivered weekly, and they're quite tasty and perhaps nutritious. I'm not exactly sure. They're okay. They're fine.
Well, and that breaks up some of the monotony, takes some of the pressure off you as far as having food around and so forth as well.
Yes, it does. And I have been ordering groceries not necessarily online, but I have a service that I can call, and I suppose I can mention it. I use GoGo Grandparent,
Sure.
and there's a person after you push, 7, and then you push, 0 or 2 or something. I forget the sequence, but I get a real person after, maybe 20 seconds of pushing numbers. And that real person is very helpful. I have already picked my store, and they go through the list of everything I want. And I can't read it from my list, but generally my husband will help me with the list if it's more than 5 things.
Mm-hmm.
But I then will be given, like, if I say I want a salad kit, those are very helpful to me. I like them. They're tasty and they're very reasonably priced. Well, before, I send my husband, sorry, I shouldn't talk, but goes to the store, and he comes back with the 2 salad kits I wanted.
Sure.
But I didn't realize they're now offered in like 10 versions. So this person on the phone will say, well, how about the Oriental one with sweet kale or something? And I go, well, how about that? So these are my alternatives. And she will suggest things, or he. And so we get the list, and then an hour or 2 later, it shows up at my door.
You can't beat that, and we all sometimes need help occasionally, so don't be ashamed. If you have a husband that can help with some things, there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with that. One thing I have learned, which I'm assuming all of us that are listening would agree to, I can memorize things so much better now. If I need a phone number, I may need a prompt, sort of whispered or something.
Mm-hmm.
But once I've heard it, it's there. And I've got the whole 9 digits ready to go for my phone call.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and we all get that way. When you are blind or go blind or anything like that, or become visually impaired, whatever term you might use, you suddenly do start to try and memorize as much as you physically can.
Yes, because otherwise you never know when you're going to be without that person who can prompt you. And I do have things that I need to use a bit more. For instance, the Meta glasses. I have them. I have the latest version, and I do use them. But I could have used them, for instance, the grocery list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing it out with a magic marker anyway, and I print it. So I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure that those Meta glasses would have helped me. But we'll have to figure out how I can be on the phone with the grocery ordering person and get my glasses on, which is another whole process, and read my list and memorize it, and
Sure.
then pick the alternatives if they don't have the kale salad with strawberries.
Yes.
It's a problem. I can't ride a bike. I guess the 2 athletic things I missed are playing tennis and bicycling. I do walk now, and I can swim, and that's a good thing. And I'm in Florida at the moment, so, the pools are heated, and, if you're from up north, you don't really care. I do.
Well, of course you do. And even in Florida, you sometimes want them heated because it can get kind of cool even down there.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, I do that, but that's really not satisfying my need for exercise. So I've got to figure out more.
Well, you are quite an active sports family, aren't you? Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because
Yes.
you have sons that have done some incredible sports things, and you can go ahead and brag a little bit if you want.
Well, yes. We were even tennis family of the year. I think it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago in Lincoln, Nebraska. But my son, daughter-in-law are accomplished tennis players. But more importantly, their sons, which are 2 boys, are very respected and ranked tennis players in their age group. I have a granddaughter also, and not in that family, but the family that is here. And she is an accomplished vocalist and ballerina. And she's 11 years old and is in point shoes. I can't remember how that called it, but the regular ballerina shoes that have the toe thing. and is very strong vocalist and has sort of a backup band that accompanies her. So it's great fun. And hopefully she'll go a bit further with both of those accomplishments.
Awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So tell us about this unique situation where, if I'm not giving too much away here, you live in Florida during the winter, which is smart, and then you come to Nebraska. How did you ever settle on Nebraska for living in the summer months?
So first of all, we are Florida residents. So we're here for sure 6+ months. And we were in South Dakota when we first retired at a lake home that we cherished. But as you know, or as lots of people would know, South Dakota is rather, I guess, remote from other locations. Now, Nebraska isn't a whole lot better with that situation. However, my oldest son, his wife, and my 2 grandsons live there. And we just kind of sold the one home and moved. And it all happened within like 3 weeks.
Wow.
So that was interesting, but that was with sight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there would have been other decisions made had, I not had my sight at that point. But whatever, we moved, and I'm glad that I was able to see everything and be exposed to what I was going to miss, but at least I can visualize it in my head as,
Sure.
we're driving
Sure.
around.
You now are totally blind then.
I wouldn't call it total. I can see shapes, but not very far away. Anything maybe 30 feet is gone. I can't see any like facial features, or I gave up using makeup except for lipstick because I can't find the right place on my face to do it. And they're going to just have to accept me the way I am. I don't know. I can maneuver the house without any problems. I have a small dog, and fortunately, she's learned to kind of get out of my way because she could be a problem. She could be a real problem. But other than that, I don't need a cane within the house or even going to the mailbox. But anything beyond the mailbox, I have my cane. And I use it. And I'm proud of it.
Sure. And well, you should be.
Yeah. And because it gives, a signal to others, okay, there's something a little bit different. And of course, it's a real good navigation tool.
Sure.
I'm able to go downstairs, of course, maybe not elegantly, but I certainly am. And the only thing that I worry about are the cement parking I don't know what they are. They're sort of like 3 foot long, and they're just a terror to me because I can't see them. I cannot see any color.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get near a parking lot and I start really using my cane with angst because they're out there ready to get me. and they're everywhere. I mean, they make them down the street at the cement factory place. I can see. And then they paint them yellow, thinking that I'm going to be able to see that. I can't. But
Right.
anyway, that's the only fear I have, and I've gotten over it. I've not yet fallen. In 4 years, I have not fallen.
Well, good for you, and you certainly do get out and about a lot. I know that just from chatting with you and so forth. So along with all, yes, yeah, you pretty much are out every day. I can certainly vouch for that. Now, as you got, obviously, as you became totally blind, or at least, well, maybe not totally blind, as you pointed out, but as you started losing your vision, let's rephrase that. As you started losing your vision, obviously, eventually, somewhere in all of this, somehow, which you're going to explain to us, you learned about Outlook Nebraska and then essentially Outlook Enrichment. Can you tell us maybe that story and how you got involved with us?
Yes, I have a cousin in Omaha who had toured the Outlook manufacturing facility with college students that she was working with more than once. And when I lost my vision, she recommended this organization. And I was grasping for anything I could find to hold on to, even if it was a balloon. and you weren't a balloon at all. But I called with a phone issue. And a very kind person tried to help me, but I did have an Android. And finally, after an hour or so, he suggested that we come to Omaha. Well, we were in Lincoln, and so I had a friend with me at the time, and we drove to Omaha to Outlook, and this person helped me and decided that I really needed to invest in an iPhone because the training on Androids was just a different deal. Not saying they're a bad thing, because I had a really nice one. I had a very nice one. Just bought it. I was like, whoa. Anyway, I did it. And I took it with me after I had transferred all the information on a vacation and had a grandson who had an accident with his phone and was able to just hand him this really nice Android that was probably 4 months old at the time. And I think he's still using it.
Wow.
Anyway, I was able to use it, but it was hard to give it up because I kind of knew how to make it hum. But I now know so much more with my iPhone.
And I suppose you're thanking the technical trainers here at Outlook for that knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they're fabulous. I've worked with them just about whatever is an issue at hour that I get. I get 2 hours a week. And the phone thing is probably about half the time we spend, and the other we do spend on the computer because I do have JAWS installed, and I do use it. I'm not as proficient as my son, who's an absolute genius at it, but I can make it hum. And we'll, check emails or write something that I need to get to someone else, and it works.
That's something I didn't mention before, that your son has apparently caught this disease as well or had this disease and is also now totally blind. Is that the correct way to describe that?
Yes, but he was affected 19 years ago, I believe. He was age 26. So I was, much older. And yeah, it was transmitted to him. It just doesn't show up in every person who's transmitted.
Is his vision pretty similar to yours, or does he have no vision at all?
His is pretty similar to mine. He believes mine is better than his, but once you can't read or drive, it's pretty much all the same. Not really, but I don't know. I guess I can see a few more shapes than he can. I certainly cannot see any color. I think I don't know. I don't know whether any of us can, but that's the way it is. And we are going from there because every morning I wake up and I'm feeling good.
Well, that is
got a challenge.
That is fantastic, and you certainly meet those challenges very, very well. So you've been working with the Outlook technical trainers and so forth, and you've started to describe what you've done with that group. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more what a training session is like with Outlook. What kind of things do they go over with you?
We have goals that we want to get done, but sometimes a crisis will be the emphasis. Like I can't get my phone to work, period. I mean, sometimes those things just happen. And
sure.
I don't know. And, we dig around just a bit, and usually it's something very, very simple. And I've gotten over most of those hurdles now by myself. But in the beginning, I wouldn't go crazy. I'll get all hyper over it, knowing that my Outlook enrichment person was going to be calling in an hour. I mean, if it's been 2 hours, I might have called somebody else. But they're real crisis solvers also. And then we'll go through, like I use Bard Mobile, and there's some glitches that I have with that, and they've been able to help me with that. My saving, erasing, text messages, voicemails, just general business of making the phone work for you as a tool, not just a communication device. And so I'm pretty good at that now. And so we don't have as many issues with the phone as I was in the beginning of my Outlook enrichment training. Now I'm trying to concentrate more on the computer, but every once in a while there's a glitch.
Sure.
And we had a problem with an app. Well, I don't even know what to call them, but a program on the computer that disappeared.
Oh, no.
Well, anyway, with a couple phone calls and working with Outlook Enrichment for about a week, we got it back.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. That is so good to hear.
And it was just something that was just making me, I don't know, I guess, anxious that I lost it. I mean, I don't know where it went. It was some kind of a glitch, but it's all happy now.
Well, that is wonderful. That's what we like to hear.
That was last week. Last week's problem.
Well, you got good people working with you. Of course, you got stuck. You got stuck having to work with me for a while before I did the podcast here.
Yeah, I loved it, and I think I was so pleased when you were going to take over the podcast because I know your personality is perfect for it and your voice.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yes. And I need to shout out, I guess, to my trainer right now is Isaac, and he is really good.
Yeah, Isaac is fantastic, and he shares your same enthusiasm. He always approaches things, with an open mind and ready to go, and I'm sure you feel that way too.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's really fun. And I look forward to his calls.
Well, great, because I'm sure he'll be making it. If I remember right, I think he does it every Monday and Wednesday, as a matter of fact.
Yep, you're right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I knew
ready.
that. Well, Jane, this has really been fun, and I wanted to get you and your wonderful story on our podcast here because I've been thinking about you for quite a while. And it is quite a story, and you are someone who can testify to having seen, so you can picture that, and you've gone, you've adapted very, very well. Again, it's one of those things where we all sometimes, those of us who have either gone blind or are visually impaired all the way through, or whatever the situation, we all sometimes need to lean on someone else for some assistance and that kind of thing. You do a little of that, but not in a bad way, and you try very hard to do it yourself before asking for that help.
Yes. Yes. It's almost to a fault, but yes, I do.
No, you do. So I think you're just a fantastic person to have on here, and we certainly want to thank you for taking time to do that and be on with us. Good. Because any other final words that you'd like to say about Outlook Enrichment, or anything else that you'd like to say to our Outlook family here?
They are a very worthy cause. Definitely, it's a nonprofit, and I really think that you deserve a lot of support and accolades. So thank you very much.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this edition of Outlook on Air, but we certainly hope you've enjoyed the program. We hope to see you back here again for another edition of Outlook on Air. And if you'd like more information about Outlook Enrichment, or anything Outlook for that matter, make sure you visit our website at www.outlooken.org. That's www.outlooken.org. Or you can always call us for more information or to schedule any kind of an appointment at area code 531-365-5051. That's area code 531-365-5051. And don't forget to subscribe to our monthly newsletter so that you can find out when the next podcast is available. And we hope to see you then on the next edition of Outlook on Air.